So we're joining this match just at the nick of time, as we spent roughly 16 minutes waiting in the queue. We have won our first two matches first against Dredge, then against the Mirror. And we're going to keep the shit out of this hand, I think.
It looks good to me. We've got a Brainstorm, we've got an A-Call, and we've got a land and a fetch. Now, oh, yuck. In terms of what we're doing here, the usual Deathrite decks have a habit of running 4 mental missteps. I feel like it's worth running out of Brainstorm, running it into a mental misstep once we've got our fetch down on next turn, and then trying to fire off an A-Call after that, and we're just essentially trying to bait with that. But we're not doing anything immediately because this particular type of deck doesn't really present too many threats until later on in the game. We're expecting probably Dark Confidence and Leovold to make an appearance, though.
Do we want a VT or do we want a Brainstorm? Do we want a VT for... I don't know what we'd VT for, I guess.
A Braid.
Alright, so do we VT for... So I guess we do want to fire off the Brainstorm, right? So that we can VT for a Braid later on.
Maybe, but I don't think it's something we want to be doing immediately yet. I think we just want to... As I said, next turn we Brainstorm with the Delta so that we can get rid of some things that we don't want. And then we start being a little bit more... we start working towards something after that once we've seen what our hand shapes up to after that.
So I'm actually kind of keen to run out Brainstorm end of turn. So we're not going to get the perfect Brainstorm. We're not going to get the best kind of Brainstorm we can, but it leaves as much mana open as we can possibly, can.
Sure. And what are we leaving mana open for? Is there something that you think that we're wanting to counter or interact with the style of deck that he's playing?
Vintage can be very mana hungry, so I definitely want to okay, we're going to let the Painful Truths resolve, I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, look, I always just like leaving mana drain mana open if I can. I like leaving dig through time open if I can. It's going to be very hard to get a dig off, I think, with a...
with the Deathrite in play, yeah, that's fair. So let's just start up with the Brainstorm and see what happens. So we're putting it on the stack, and I think with his 7 cards in hand, we're probably expecting a mental misstep, but that's fine because we were kind of expecting that as well.
You never know, it could be a daze.
Webb was talking earlier about how he has been playing against Brian Kelly in the practice room on his VSL account, and that it did have a Braid daze in it. So the next turn, I think, is going to be Time Walk and A-Call, and then the turn after we have 3 mana. So that would be... Or do we maybe want to VT, get something relevant in upkeep, play... Oh, not in upkeep, sorry. So we need to grab the land on top of our library, fetch, cast VT, then cast Time Walk is what I think we want to do.
Okay, so just so we're not going to VT on upkeep because we want to draw the land on top. And so you're saying we want to hold off on the A-Call.
Yeah, I think we VT for a Braid to kill the Deathrite Shaman, cast the Time Walk, and follow up with Ancestral Recall in our Time Walk turn.
All right, well, let's start by... We're going to lead on Mox. So we're going to have to fetch first, I think, because I think we want
to fetch first so that we don't mess up the VTing.
We definitely want... Yeah, we're going to want a Volk here.
Yep, sounds good. So admittedly, we do have the Ruby, so...
I just like having a proper land base. Abrupt Decay deals well with taking us off colours.
Yep.
So it works almost like Wasteland if we're not careful about how we fetch.
Yep, that's fair. The other thing is whether or not it's worth fetching for basics, considering that he probably has some Wastelands running around in his deck.
I think in Vintage playing around Wasteland too much, except out of very specific decks, tends to lose you more games than it wins you games. So I tend to be a little bit prone to maybe, I guess, playing these a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's fair. So our opponents seem to be having a heavy think about our vampiric tutor.
This tells us got a force or a misstep, so I think either that or he's trying to bluff really hard. I think this means we're going to be really careful about when we resolve Ancestral.
Yep, that's 100% fine. So is the Abrade our best option, or do we want to go for the... is the Toxic Deluge in the main?
Toxic Deluge is in the side.
Yep. I think we just go for the Abrade, and that's fine. And then if we draw a Snapcaster later, then we can play it back, since most of his spells are going to be... Do we have Snapcasters? We don't.
Is there a consideration to get something like maybe?
Like, he's paused on most of our spells so far, but he hasn't actually counted anything yet. My experience with the deck is that it usually just runs mental missteps and forces, so you have to be quite precise about when you're running anything off. I don't think a Jace would be the worst here. I don't think Tinker would be the worst. Otherwise, the Braid just deals with what's on his board right now and lets us continue playing after. Snapcast is in our hands, so yes, of course we have that. So I think a Braid's best.
Okay, my other consideration was Lotus. Wondering whether or not we can get a DAC down. I think if we get a DAC down, we're going to just be so far ahead. But let's just grab a Braid and we'll deal with his board.
Yeah, that sounds good. And time up.
Alright, so I think we're going to run out of Braid first and hope that that just takes whatever counter in his hand out of play.
Yeah, so if he does decide to force this for whatever reason, then I think it's fine to follow up with the Ancestral.
And are we going to tap a C, or I think I'm going to tap a C here. Yep. Because I like representing Red Blast where I can.
Yep, that's fair. Okay, so the fact that he didn't have a pause like he did on the Brainstorm or the Vampiric Tutor almost definitely means that it's a mental misstep that he has in hand. I think that means that it's fine to slam something like the DAC or the Dig Through Time next turn, but we want to hold off on casting the Ancestral Recall.
I'm almost keen to jam the Ancestral now so that we can get the misstep out of his hand and then snap a call.
Yeah, that's a nice play as well. Maybe we want to be doing that on his turn, though, to once again tap down his mana, so it's something that we have the maneuverability on our turn.
So I don't know if it'll tap down his mana if it's a misstep, but at least it makes him more inclined to use his mana.
Yeah, exactly.
If he does anything... I guess he can't do anything at the end of our turn. Never mind. He's definitely... Okay, so he's thinking a lot here for some reason. So I'm not sure why.
Clearly he's playing... No, you got me. Gush would be the reason to think there, but it's a really, really bad Gush.
Library's also really, really, really bad. Let's hope like hell that we can start getting some cards out of his hand sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we really want to do something like A-Call into... Okay. Our A-Call's going to resolve and we're going to hit a strip mine.
Yeah, that's... How hard could that be? Don't answer that question.
And unfortunately, I don't know if anybody who's ever watched any of my leagues ever has heard me rant about how much I hate fucking Leovold. But in case anybody was not aware, I hate fucking Leovold. And I think the card's awful and should probably never have been printed. So if anybody ever wants to hear a longer rant about it, hit me up.
And that's going to be quite enjoyable. So we've just had a quick look at his previous tournament finishes, because why wouldn't you do something like that? Looks like you might be running 2 Pyroblasts in the main deck, so that sounds like fun.
Also completely irrelevant from where we are right now.
Yeah, so he has no red sources, so that's fine.
Speaking of, well, that was stupid. I accidentally played a land before I played a DT. Let's get the... No, let's go snap a call now?
I think you want to...
So snap a call, I think, is actually okay now.
I don't think... I think we might actually just want to try and jam a DT into Tinker at some point, but he is maintaining 7 cards. Oh yeah, DT for Strip Mine probably would have been the best play that turn, but let's try that next turn and snap A-Call this turn.
We're going to snap A-Call right now because it has the best chance of taking him off library. We have a Force in hand, and I think I'm somewhat inclined to pitch Cruise here to Force.
I don't think we care enough about the 3 random cards than we do about having those extra cards in hand at the moment. Though at the moment our graveyard is a little bit stacked, so delving stuff away is interesting.
The reason I also want to pitch Cruise rather than anything else is, once again, I may be wrong here. I have a tendency to value filtering or ongoing card filtering over, for instance, just 3 random cards at an opportune time, with the exception being, Ancestral Recall. How do we feel about this? Do we force this now?
Yeah, I think we force. That seems fine.
Alright, so we're going to force this. Whether or not Cruise is the correct thing to pitch there, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, Snapcaster triggers online are really annoying.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't play too often, so I'll take your word for it. Cool. So we've got a Pyroblast here, which is actually really nice. As something to be able to hold up. But yeah, I think we just want to DT next turn and get our opponent off library as soon as we can.
And this turn we're not going to stuff it up by
Playing lands.
as Graham said, just playing lands. It might have been a bit hard to hear him there. The mic was not next to his mouth.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we've got a second Deathrite Shaman that we don't really care about yet. And he's playing all of the colours of mana. He is on less than 7 cards at the moment, so it actually means that we're more likely to resolve a spell even if he has got a counter spell, just because while he's got something like that, he will try and get back to 7 cards as a priority. I think now that that's gone, we're a lot more likely to see some interaction from him, at least more aggressively than we would otherwise.
So, Graham, you mentioned that now he's below 6 cards. He's more likely to use his interaction. Do we want to try to push a DAC into his interaction, or should we be holding up a drain right now?
So the fact that we've got the Pyroblast backup means that we can try and just force a lot of things through at the moment, and it's just a question of what we aim for. I think the first thing that I would do would be the dig through time on his turn, and then and once again that just lets you hold up mana and then and represent more things, just because having open mana on your opponent's turn is really important. And then based on what happens off the dig, then we can look at going further. We can also just hold up days at the moment as well. Mana drain, I should say.
I was about to mention something about that. So I think we're going to dig at end of turn. Okay, so Trigon Predator is going to deal with our Moxen. I'm not particularly sure I care about that, but I'm wondering if we drain or pyroblast anyway. How do you feel about this, Graham?
I think you want to let it resolve and then pyroblast as a permanent on your turn. And the reason we're doing it on our turn is essentially just so that we have our mana drain open again. So we're wanting to try and bait our opponents into using spells so that we can maximize our use of mana. If we're doing this as well, we're also going to want to do it in our second main phase. So we're going to miss out on 2 points of damage from Snapcaster by choosing to do this. And I think we get the Underground Sea here.
So the only black card we have left is Will. So we're actually going to grab a Volk.
Okay, cool. You know a bit more about the makeup of the deck than I do.
And dig.
And where are we? We're in his end step. No, I don't. Yeah, sure, go for it. See what happens. I think based on the fact this is quite heavy creature based, we want to keep the Abrade in there. Get rid of the Force. Yep, that seems fine. Well, we've got a Time Vault and a Will and a DT in Yard. So we're getting close to the point where we can combo. I don't think we care too much about interaction because we've got Force and Drain at the moment. So I think we take Will and Time Vault and then just try and combo maybe in 2 or 3 turns once we've got a little bit more mana.
So I've taken Graham's advice here. I disagree a little bit, mostly based around the fact that I'm not convinced that Will is where we want to be with Deathrite Shaman. However, we're going to try this. I guess we can also start filling our graveyard fairly heavily with Dak, and our opponent's planning on doing something here.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I think we want to in second main phase of our turn, Pyroblast with mana drain backup, and that means if they do try and counter it, we get the mana in our next main phase, which is going to be the first main step of next turn. We've also got a Notion Thief now. Going to see exactly how our opponent does decide to react to this, but this is something where we definitely want to just see how much mana we can possibly get off a mana drain. What do you think about that one?
So I'm almost inclined at the moment to let that resolve, and we can deal with him taking out Moxen.
Yeah.
Moxen are not the be-all end-all from where we're concerned right now. So I think Notion Thief on his upkeep might be the go with a Force of Will backup. Force pitching mana drain, and then we can Dak Faden and hope like hell that he doesn't have Leovold just yet. I think that, to me, that feels right.
Yeah, that's fair. Obviously, as I said, the other option is just trying to leverage mana drain and see what happens.
I think leveraging mana drain here is a tiny bit awkward because it's not a good trade.
Yeah, and we're behind on creature advantage at the moment anyway.
All right, we'll let the misstep resolve. Now, how do you feel, Notion Thief now or Notion Thief on his turn?
Notion Thief on his turn.
Unless he's going to jam something here, which seems unlikely, but...
So he's just taking something out of our graveyard. Looks like the DT?
Time Walk.
Time Walk, yep, cool. And we're fine with that, I think.
Oh, we probably... I accidentally clicked through his upkeep there, which was wrong. So we let him just get one extra draw there, which I'd rather he didn't have.
Yeah, that's fine for the moment. So we just take the hit, and he's probably going to kill the Mox Ruby just because the Mox Pearl was off color. But he's just thinking about what to do about the Notion Thief.
How hard are we going to fight over the Notion Thief?
Look, I think it cuts him off quite a lot of stuff. Like, any of his filtering is going to be down, so I think it's fine to back it up with a force. I think we definitely cut him off the dig through time.
Shit. Right, so I just had an accident with a beer, however. I'm still going to force this mana drain. And we will be back in a moment. Graham, I'm going to pass control over to you so I can clean up.
Okay, so I'm not quite as good as Michael at using these keyboard shortcuts, so we'll see what happens. And we're just going to let him hit us with the Trigon Predator for the moment. We go down to 10 and see what he chooses to hit here. Yeah. Okay, he's got a Manglehorn, so we no longer have any artifacts here. That's exactly what we needed here. And what's more than that, our Time Vault is going to enter the battlefield tapped due to this Manglehorn that's just been played out. Our opponent played a Manglehorn.
That's okay.
So, in terms of just the creatures on board, he seems to be a little bit ahead there. Okay, and we'll see what we draw for the turn. We've got another land, which is quite nice. We're just going to keep the fetch land here. We're going to Dak Vaden. And we're going to start by ticking up. Well, if it resolves, yep, looks like we're good there.
Target us? We should have targeted our opponent there.
Oh yeah, we should have. Wow, I'm bad at this game.
We're going to pitch Vault Key right now. The reason we're pitching Vault Key is because Deathrite doesn't interact with them. Unfortunately, Graham punted a tiny bit. So the reason to deck ourselves there is we would have just drawn 2 cards. Our Snap is going to block the Manglehorn next turn. And I think next turn we're actually going to hopefully cast a Yorg's Will.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes.
So the reason we're going to cast a Yorg's Will next turn is it should get us Vault Key online. I think, what is that? If we fetch... Okay, so I don't know what our opponent's doing right now. If it's a Leah Vault. So Leah... Okay. So he's going to bounce Notion Thief.
Yep, that makes sense. And he does it.
And that's completely okay. So our opponent really needs to have something good here. We're kind of a little bit of an advantage in that we've managed to kind of, I think, throw his game plan off. Snap deals with Manglehorn.
Do we want to try and Notion Thief next turn and then deck on him, or is that not worth it?
I actually don't think it's worth it. The reason I don't think it's worth it right now is I think we just want to try to win.
So he's trying to keep his Mangle Horn up so that he can make sure our Voltaic Key doesn't kill him because it comes into play tapped.
Oh, I forgot about the second clause. That's a problem.
So at the moment we've got 4 mana. We can use 3, but okay, I was going to say we can use 3 of it and then play the Moxes from our graveyard, but that doesn't work very well because they can only play tapped.
So we are going to Notion Thief and DAC him.
Yep. So we'll see how this goes. Now we're only going to be able to do that on this turn because our Notion Thief is going to need to block next turn so that we don't die. And we'll see what we get here. We've got a Blightsteel Colossus. Great. And an Island Play Land.
Whoops.
Okay, and he goes away again.
So I think this is still okay.
We might want to actually speed up our play a little bit just because we are in game 1 still. And it looks like we are going along on this one. So we lose them up.
We actually just lost, so we're actually just going to scoop here because our opponent can eat something from our graveyard and win.
Yep, that sounds good. And let's go to the next round.
Deluge?
Deluge sounds good. I didn't see any red mana. So this is one of those games where it's not the worst to be boarding out some of your forces just because you're playing an attrition-based matchup, so you're not really wanting to go one-on-one. Ingot Chewer isn't actually the worst card in the world to play just as a 5-cost 3/3 because 3/3s are quite big. And do you think we want the second Notion Thief?
I don't think we do. I don't think he's drawing a lot of cards. He's playing a very fair game. So if we're cutting a force, I kind of like keeping force in, to be honest, because I don't want to see a Leovold. I don't like Notion Thief all that much here.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, I don't think I've seen any signs that he does have a Wasteland in his deck so far, so it might be worth cutting a singular island.
And while I normally like Mindbreak Trap in most blue matchups, it is going to be playing a lot less counter magic than I would typically expect to see. So we're not going to be fighting big stack battles. We're going to leave the Mindbreak Traps out. A Braid is always useful. It's going to deal with things like Null Rod, which I would expect to see here. And also just awful cards like Leovold. So we'll just submit this and we'll go. And we're going to have to try to win this very quickly, given the very limited amount of time that we have left on the clock. We should probably stop fucking about. Yep. We've been doing a very good job at this league.
We're trying to give you the best experience possible, which is not necessarily the best experience for watching. Hey, look, I've got a library.
We're going to keep, right?
Yep.
So I think our ideal goal here is to run our opponents out of clock before we run ourselves out of clock.
We'll see how well this plan goes, but we're going to open on library. So at this point we are wanting to library during our own turn for the purpose of making sure that we don't miss any of our land drops along the way. This is obviously oh dear, in difference to our earlier match where we had library where we were trying to maximize it on our opponent's turn. So it's a question of just hitting all your land drops and then seeing when you can switch over to that mode where you're librarying on your opponent's turn rather than on yours.
Now, unfortunately, the sad bit here is that our hand is actually, apart from library, pretty shit, and Thoughtseize does not help this at all.
So we're going to ignore the library plan and move on to preordain on our turn.
I actually don't think we're going to. I think we're going to keep on the library because I think keeping on library is going to be better than casting a singular preordain.
Yep, okay, let's see what happens. So I'm expecting the Notion Thief to be gone here just because it runs out of a few problems, but he might decide to take the preordain just in order to cut us off being able to filter, and he does go with that second option there. So we're just going to draw past turn most likely. Yep.
We're not going to run out the probe because probe is vulnerable to misstep, and I completely understand him taking the preordain because that's the only card in our hand that does anything.
So we're just going to pass turn and see what happens. He's got to stop in our end step, just seeing what's going on. He might not have expected us to go that quickly. Okay, so we've got the Death Ride online again, and we've got our library. So we draw and see a...
For anyone that's curious, my next plan here is I'm going to play the Delta. I know cracking a Delta will feed the Death Rite, but I'd rather have a Pyroblast up.
Yep, so we see a Ponder. Do you think it's worth pondering to try and find something over the Pyroblast, or are you just going to keep that up, the Pyroblast?
So our worst enemy right now is actually Leovold, which can be cast this coming turn, so I'd rather hold up the Pyroblast.
Okay, let's see what happens. He really does like that stop in the end step, doesn't he?
To be fair, I like my stops almost everywhere. I think I am very unusual in Magic Online because I have a singular set of stops for all formats and they're at almost every point. So I'm probably a pain in the ass to play against.
Yeah, like this is fair, but it's also just it's something that you really should be paying attention to at all these points regardless. And he takes the Delta. We'll see if he does have the lever. No, he just goes straight for a Jace.
Should we Pyroblast this? I feel like we can kind of let it resolve.
So if we let it resolve, play 2 land, and then play out a Notion Thief, we might get value off it. Not sure how viable that is, but we can have a go.
I think we can also Pyroblast it later on when we're in a slightly better position to fight over it. So let's just try.
Yeah. At the moment, we don't really care about it as a creature. As just a Merfolk Looter effect, we care about it once it becomes a Planeswalker and it becomes a lot harder to kill. So we're just going to let him have it there until we're closer to a Planeswalker as a card. Okay, so... draw a library. Do you think it's worth probing here? Like, we want a library first, I think, but do you think it is worth probing to see what's going on in his hand?
I think we library and probe, and I think we can pitch a land if we feel like if we end up at 8 cards at the end of turn. I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
Yep. Okay, so we've got a Force of Will now off that library, which are something we like to see. Okay, so we've got Abrupt Decay, 2 Death Rides, a Mental Misstep, a Painful Truths, and an Excavator. So, out of those cards, the Abrupt Decay is fairly easy to play around. The Death Rides are fighting with each other over resources, so I think in terms of prioritizing, we're wanting to hit a Painful Truth with a Forcible if he does decide to cast that. Just because it keeps him so far behind in terms of what he's trying to do, and we don't care too much about what the rest of his hand is.
Do we want to run a Brainstorm into a Misstep, or a Ponder into a Misstep?
I think that's fine. It's probably the Brainstorm, I would think, just because of we don't have the shuffle effect, so we're getting more value out of a Ponder than a Brainstorm at the moment. And we'll just see what he decides to do here. Yep, so we have eaten the Misstep out of his hand, and so we're just going to work with what the rest of it is.
So in terms of clock, we're in a lot of trouble right now. We really need to pick up the pace. However, in terms of game position, I think we're doing really well. We're probably... Okay, so the Painful Truths can...
Okay, so we know what he drew. On one of the two at least.
Is he going to play an Excavator?
Tapping for 5?
So 5 banner. So Painful Truths, I guess we can force pitch Ponder. So we're going to go off our library plan at the moment now. I think we need to get quite a lot more aggressive.
Yeah, so...
Okay, and he's got a library. I don't think we care about Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to Pyroblast Jace here.
That sounds good. I think once we've done that, the next turn we're going to just Jace and start ticking up.
I'm not sure if we want to Jace tick up or start getting a Notion Thief online. I guess he doesn't really have any draw spells. The problem with Jace ticking up is it doesn't necessarily deal well with 2 Deathrites attacking.
So the remainder of his hand at the moment is Excavator, Abrupt Decay.
And Jace ticking up. Actually, no, he's out of lands. Okay, we can deal with this.
Yeah, so I think Jace tick up works well, and if he does decide to attack with the Deathrites, then he's using his Deathrites for that. Rather than any of the other things that they could be used on. Did you want to run the Soul Ring out, or it's not worth it? Oh, he does have Decay, but...
So he has Decay, and I don't really see the point. I think we're going to bottom the land.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to try and go through this real quick right now, and we're going to hope that we can something like Tinker of a Blightsteel sooner rather than later. I'm also going to jam an Ocean Thief at the end of next turn.
Yeah, so that sounds really good. I don't think it's the worst. Once again, just solving off the library and trying to get the Abrupt Decay out of his hand.
So he's going to Wasteland us here. He's probably going to take us off red, and I don't think we care.
So we care about the Wasteland because he's got an Excavator in his hand and he's got a Wastelock.
That's fine. Wastelock doesn't necessarily... Oh, actually... Excavator's going to die to Notion Thief, and Jace is going to let us win the game regardless.
Okay, so we're back to ticking up. So there's our Excavator. We'll see if he attacks with it.
So you think we should start brainstorming with Jace now, or what?
I think we're fine at the moment. I think we can just tick up because he's not going to want to use the Deathrites for anything else. Block Excavator with the Notion Thief and then just see what he does. If he decides that he doesn't want us on the Soul Ring, then he's going to have to use the Abrupt Decay from his hand.
Alright, so we're going to probably flush a Notion Thief on his combat step.
Yep, that seems fair. We'll decides to do here. In terms of if he is attacking with everything, he does, so we can just play the Notion Thief as we mentioned earlier. So I think he's got one unknown in hand. We'll see what happens.
And so that's the waste lock gone.
So we've got a Flusterstorm, which isn't too...
I'm going to tick up on us because I think we actually need to start drawing gas sooner rather than later.
Yep, that's fair. Have a look at what we've got. Okay, so we bottom that. It might be worth slipping in a Brainstorm next turn, just see if we can get some more cards in hand, which are relevant. But
we're on a fairly short clock here, for multiple reasons.
yeah. So if he keeps deciding to use the Death Rights to eat cards in our graveyard, I think we win the race for with Jace. It's just how we go. He looks like he's gearing up to play something big. Okay, so now we need to brainstorm so that we can find some answers to that, because we're not going to be able to race that in terms of cards from ticking up. We may have wanted to Peridate prior to that, but that's okay.
We probably want to Jace first, as I want to conserve mana, and my goal here is to find something like a Toxic Deluge.
Or
Tinker.
Or Tinker. So we've got Tinker Blightsteel Colossus with multiple cards. Flusterstorm's backup. Well, we can only use one of the Flusterstorms. This should still be fine. And then we've got 5 minutes to finish off the third game.
So hopefully he's going to force a will here. We're going to Flusterstorm, and then he's going to be out of gas. This is our goal.
Otherwise, we should be able to deal with most things that he could otherwise grab out of his deck.
If I was my opponent, I would make us kill him, just so he can burn a little bit more time on our clock.
We're just seeing how he chooses to do this. Sure, so he attacks into us, not wanting to deal with Jace, and we kill off the Sol Ring.
And so I think our goal for next game is to kill him on the first or second turn.
And that's a really good card. So we do that for three, sorry. Kill all those creatures. It means we don't do lethal next turn, but he's going to be very hard pressed to do anything next turn.
He has to either force this or we win.
How so?
Still.
It's mirrored.
It's mirrored?
Yeah, it's an 8-8 now.
Whatever.
I meant it's going to take 2 turns. We don't win this turn. And that should be the game. Yep. So, going into third game, I don't think we're making any changes. Can you think of anything?
We're on a short clock. We're not going to make changes. We're catching up on the clock, fortunately. We were something like 6 minutes apart. We're playing super fucking quick because we're real bad at monitoring the clock, in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah. Okay. So, deck submitted. He's seen a bit more of what we're doing, so he may have changed his boarding there. And then we're going to continue. So, Tinker or Bust with Force Backup.
So we're going to have exactly something like Force, Tinker.
That's about halfway there. I like the Strip Mine, I like the Toxic Deluge, I like the Time Vault. I think we're just leading on Ponder, and that's fine to keep. What do you think?
I would mulligan, but if you reckon keep, we'll keep.
Are you... So just to clarify, you're mulliganing because you need a fast hand because of our clock time, or are you...
The hand's trash.
Okay, sure. Like, the fact that we're playing against a slower creature-based deck means that I think I'm being a little bit more risky than I otherwise would. But yuck.
So the hand's actually trash because it doesn't do anything.
Okay, that's fair.
We're actually not going to... Actually, no, we're going to Ponder now. Because we want the Ponder to eat the Misstep rather than the Brainstorm.
Yeah. Pardon me. Okay. So we're just waiting to see what he wants to do in his end step.
So at this point, we're a solid favourite to lose, but we're going to give it a go.
That's fair. What's he got? Green Suns for 1. Getting Deathright Shaman.
So I think we're going to ignore the Deathright Shaman for this turn, and then we're going to Brainstorm, and then we're going to Deluge next turn.
Yep. Okay, we now have Time Vault key combo.
Okay, so I think we're going to put away Dak Deluge.
Yep.
I think we want to draw the Deluge next turn. I maybe should have played the Ruby, but I think we have enough mana to just go for it.
Sure.
Our opponent's also very likely to make us play it out at this point, however.
Yeah, so if we get the Time Vault key combo and play it online, I think we're wanting to do the Jace to Cup, if we can get it. So you're just going to use the Deluge as bait and then see what he does with the Deathright?
Given the amount of time we have on the clock, I'm actually just going to jam Vault Key.
Okay, so let's see what happens here. So lead on the key just to see if he's got Misstep. Yep, so that looks fine.
I think it's also fine for us to scoop here if he has Abrupt Decay.
Yep, that's fair. So he's let both of those resolve. We'll see what he does. And we get, yep, cool. Okay, so it goes to your Abrupt Decay.
And... Alright. Let's see if we can Deluge next turn and then tick up with Jace.
So it's going to be faster than the last time we were doing the same sequence of plays. Okay, he hits our Brainstorm. Okay, so it looks like he might be going for a Jace or something similar as well. Goes for a Manglehorn.
We're fine with the Manglehorn. We're going to eat the Manglehorn.
So we think we might be worth cutting him off green here with the Strip Mine. Oh, actually no, we needed to play the Jace. It only needs to be 2.
And I think we're going to scoop it up there. So we probably should have played a little bit faster. We would have had a little bit more time. However, I don't think it was the main consideration in this match. I think getting ahead on Manglehorn, Decay, and Deathright Shaman is probably the main deciding factor there.